So it turns out Mike Pence, our vice president, while he was governor of Indiana, used a private email server to do his correspondence in certain matters. According to the Indianapolis Star, quote, Pence communicated via his personal AOL account. He had an AOL account is how he chose to keep up with his correspondence, because those CDs, he had 90 minutes all stored up. His personal AOL account with top advisors on topics ranging from security gates at the governor's residence to the state's response to terror attacks across the globe. In one email, Pence's top state Homeland Security advisor relayed an update from the FBI regarding the arrests of several men on federal terror-related charges. Now, when asked, this is the response that the vice president had.
The email practices were in full compliance with all of Indiana's laws. There's no comparison whatsoever between Hillary Clinton's practice, having a private server, mishandling classified information, destroying emails when they were requested by the Congress and by officials. We have fully complied with all Indiana's laws.
So that's what he says. But if you read up on what exactly, how this information came to the public, it's because some of it was released by the new governor of Indiana. And according to the Indianapolis Star, Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb's office released 29 pages of emails from Pence's AOL account, but declined to release an unspecified number of others because the state considers them confidential and too sensitive to release to the public. Any emails Pence sent from his AOL account to another private account likely would have been hidden from public record searches unless he took steps to make them available. So, whatever you think about private email accounts, if you wanted to go after Hillary Clinton for it, there's clearly a hypocrisy happening.
Is there?
What do you think?
I'm not really sure about that. So in 2015, the Wall Street Journal said that, did a survey, and over a third of government employees use personal unsecured email account, which I did in every single government employee that I've ever known, and I've been a government employee my entire adult life.
Really?
So, and here's the thing that Chuck Grassley said in 2015. I just want to quote it to make sure completely accurate, and I'll just change the gender here. I think they all fall into one great big mistake he made, and it could be a violation of the law, probably is a violation of the law. Some people are suggesting he could even be prosecuted. And it's as simple as this. He was using a private email address instead of a government one, and it probably violates the Freedom of Information Act, and it probably violates the national security legislation. Thing is it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And just like Hillary didn't, it doesn't here either.
That's right.
Because what happens is the Freedom of Information Act, they have to have a request, and that means you have to provide the documents. Pence does provide the documents. He did save his AOL account so that you can retrieve those emails, and you have it. It's a potential violation of record-keeping regulations if the things were classified, but that still remains only something that's internal memo stuff that isn't really a big deal. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like this is a big waste of time when you're talking about emails. It's like what these things are is like we operate in chaos theory. There's too many things that come at us all at once, and we make these laws that seem to make sense when you start drafting them, and then time they're implemented, they're really outdated and irrelevant. This is just like stuff they're trying to codify, like technology from 15 years ago. This isn't really relevant.
But look, you were a police officer, right, Michael? Mm-hmm. Right. Now I understand like we shouldn't be looking in your private emails like and your Tinder account and whatever else, right? But like I've worked for elected officials and people running for office, and in my experience, there's only one reason you have like this personal email account you use for government business, and then you have like your government email account. And if you're conducting government decisions on that private email account, in my experience, there's only one reason to do that, and that's to shield it from that Freedom of Information Act. It's to be able to make decisions and have conversations and do things that are against the public interest or in someone else's private interest.
Yeah,
right?
It's a top secret classification, man.
Right, well, you shouldn't be talking about it on your private email
I don't know,
account.
man. I see nothing in it.
I didn't see anything in the, if I didn't see it, I think that, so the hypocrisy would be that, to me, I would be like, we shouldn't be making a big deal about this, nor should we have made a big deal about that. And most of us, most Americans, don't have a firm grasp, neither does Mike Pence, unless, of course, he's just being political, which is fine, as to what Hillary did. He's just starting to say stuff. Destroyed emails, mishandled classified information, which was not the actual finding of the FBI that they mishandled classified information. So First of all, a couple things I like. If Hillary Clinton, I wish had used an AOL account because then we'd have heard you've got jail. Which,
Oh, that's really good.
Right, which is a great, I
really
think,
good.
a loss for America. And then I like the notion that their big get is like, oh no, we found out he a private email exchange about the federal officials arresting people on terrorism charges, which would have been public. I mean, it's not like there's no aha moment there. I also, defending in general politicians who use private email, I have no doubt that you're right about shielding the public and shielding themselves from the public.
And not for noble purposes.
Not for noble purposes.
Corrupt ones.
But is that
you
true?
think hold
Yeah,
on. You think Mike Pence is facile enough, and guys like Mike Pence are facile enough to remember to use the different email accounts? And this is not a make fun of old people. This is a legitimate man. It was hard enough to get me to understand how to do this in general. And now I got to remember which is which for which email account to switch back and forth.
I think
I think that some of that has to do. We know it was true with Hillary, who was like wouldn't give up the BlackBerry because she couldn't figure out how to use anything else.
right.
I mean, AOL works though.
No,
AOL
I mean, you're giving me a look. I'm not. That's not.
Sorry.
No. That's not a defense of why they kept a separate server. They shouldn't have kept a separate server. It showed political.
Here's the reality. Mike Pence has enough Republicans defending him. Okay, like on this issue, we don't need to like join the chorus.
But this isn't identity politics, bro.
Hear me out. But I'm with you in the sense where I'm like, look, I'm with Bernie. Enough about the damn emails. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dude, I'm not with anybody. Stick to what the facts are of the case and consistent methodology and all this. This demonstrates the identity politics that we're having. I read this quote. It's from 2015 talking about Hillary, and I just changed the gender so that it was a male. And this is just a thing that takes us away from everything that matters. For instance, right now, Camden, New Jersey is about to do radical police reform, and they have a radical mayor coming in to talk about it. And we got 7 fucking stories on Trump.
What's the Camden story?
We can't do it because nobody's here to talk about it. So in Camden, New Jersey, we have a young black mayor named Rashad who's coming up running for mayor. He has a lot of community support. He wants to do my civilian-led model where he's actually going to put control of policing in there. We're going to try to connect him with the Justice Democrats so we can get a big radical reform movement instead of bitching about the same politics we've been bitching about for 100 years.
Have we
Well,
been
that
bitching
might
about
be
email
a-
politics for
that
100
might be a
AOL is
fair
only
point.
75 years old. AOL, in its defense, is only 75 years old. One of the reasons I really love this story is A, because it's AOL, and B, like I want to find a way we can handle emails where it's not an issue anymore. Like,
It is. It's probably AOL and stuff. That's the thing is I'm telling you from a government employee perspective, like our shit never works. When
Really?
they do FOIAs, they come to find out and they're like, oh, we deleted all those emails. We have no idea where they went because, I mean, government is inept. We always want to put this big thing, this conspiracy, but there's a conspiracy of morons. It's not a conspiracy.
Confederacy of dunces.
Yes, it's a complete ineptitude.
right. I
But
feel
not across the. I hear you. Yes.
As a
but-
generalization.
Right, but I mean, there's plenty of. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, we know a lot of good people trying to do good work and some trying to do good things. So I hesitate to adapt that manner of thinking because I think it breeds Trump vote.
Mike Pence is smart enough to use Gmail. I'm
You think so?
confident in that. I also think he probably won't launch
Look.
one of 7,000 nuclear weapons, and we all know Donald Trump will, which is why we should all be
I hear you.
focusing on that existential threat, as important as the police reform agenda is, my friend.
But how are we going to know if he has a private email server how Indiana's Homeland Security people respond to a terrorist attack in Belgium? Like we need to know. I don't know. I find it. And here's one other thing, and I'm curious, Ryan, because again, if you worked in government, 30 years ago, these people had meetings and they had phone calls, and it was the easiest thing in the world, right? Now, because of we're not quite keeping up with technology. To me, I don't know. I don't want a government that works in the shadows, but is okay with me if a chief executive or someone on his staff emails someone else about a pressing public matter, and we don't have to see all those exchanges because they don't walk side by side with a stenographer who writes down everything was had in a private conversation. We know that's private. Why is the email automatically public?
Well, I want to know every conversation that Donald Trump, as chief executive, has had with Vladimir Putin and has had with, Carter Page and Paul Manafort and Steve Bannon and all these guys. Don't you want to know that?
Some of them rise to that level.
Oh, okay. Well, those we want, but not the other ones. No, I mean, it's the same everywhere. You got to bring it in the light. You can't let them conduct business in the darkness. And if they do, and you allow them to make money off of it, there's a financial incentive
Okay, but hold on.
for darkness,
Totally
for
true.
dark things to happen.
We are on the same side. We really are. This is not. I'm not secretly pretending to be on your side when I'm not. We are on the same side. But what about conversations that aren't electronic? I mean, or phone conversations that. Well, now that we know those are recorded, also. But I mean, meeting in the hall to discuss this thing, this very issue, then we never know. And so the idea that suddenly, because there became a way to track every memo, used to be, and we'd send memos back and forth, and we'd find the smoking gun. Oh, the memo that says,
that's a
hey
good
man, the
thing.
carburetor blows up, and then they destroy that memo, and then it gets exposed
And that's
in
a
court.
good thing. Look, sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? And we need sunlight on the governor's decisions as an executive. We need sunlight on the president's decisions and the mayor's decisions as executives. We, the people, need to be able to see why they're making the decisions they're making and who they're making them with. Because a lot of times the decisions aren't made in the committee room. They're not made on the floor of the legislature. They're not made on the floor of Congress or even in the White House. They're made on K Street. You know, they're made in the lobbyist's office,
I'm
or
just
they're made
telling
in backroom, smoke-filled,
We're still not going to.
backroom
I'm just
decisions.
saying, we're still not going to know that, and as a result, we're running the risk of hyper focusing on emails, and then we are unable to distinguish between what is grave and what is merely careless or silly.
Right.
And we need to always distinguish what is grave from what is careless or silly.
Let's put some watchers on the wall, investigative journalists to run down the Trump administration and the establishment. You can make that happen. TYTnetwork.com/go.